Our guest today is a keynote speaker, author, and a professionally trained improviser and alumni of the Second City's Conservatory in Chicago, Illinois. Our guest studied and performed improv theater at night while working full-time by day in the meetings industry in sales and marketing for companies like Marriott, Omni, and Starwood Hotels before starting her company, Holler Productions, in 2013. Our guest is a past president of Meeting Professionals International, Chicago area chapter, and was named one of the 40 under 40 in the meetings industry by Connect magazine in 2015. She has a passion for the meetings industry and is proud to work with Meetings Mean Business to advocate for the undeniable value that business meetings, trade shows, incentive travel, exhibitions, conferences, and conventions bring to people, businesses, and communities. Our guest has a book on fear titled Fear is My Homeboy, How to Slay Doubt, Boss Up, and Succeed on Your Own Terms, which was recently endorsed by Mel Robbins, calling it relatable, relevant, and most importantly, actionable. Fear is My Homeboy comes out this May 28, 2019, and is available for pre-sale now on Amazon, 800 CEO Read, and Barnes & Noble. I would like to welcome Judi Holler to the Amani Experience podcast.
It is so awesome to be here. And can we drop a mic on that introduction? Nice job.
Thank you.
My air mic is just
there you go.
Dropped. Nice job.
I love it. Great introduction. So we always do a geographical check-in. So right now, tell the listeners where you are.
I am in a very snowy Hudson, Ohio. I'm about 30 minutes east of downtown Cleveland. So Hudson, Ohio.
Hudson, Ohio. And where did you grow up?
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, born and raised. So I'm a Midwest girl. And then I moved to Chicago in my early 30s, spent just over a decade there. And then when I met and got engaged to my husband, who is from Chicago, we moved up here to Ohio. So I'm a Midwest girl, just a little bit more east now.
Excellent, excellent. I used to spend the summers in St. Louis, over off Northland Avenue and Kings Highway, kind of where the old little Silodrome used to be.
Oh yeah. And I think that's is that near Central West End, right?
It sounds like it. I haven't been in a while. It sounds like it. But what I do remember, of course, I remember the Arch, but then I also remember the McDonald's that's on the Riverboat too. I don't know if that's still there anymore or not.
Ooh. We used to go there as kids, and oh my God, it was like the biggest treat. But the riverboat has been, the McDonald's is gone, the casinos are there. They booted McDonald's and put in a bunch of casinos on the river. But yeah, I've been to that McDonald's.
Yes. Okay, and then you went to school. You went to Lindenwood University.
Well, yeah. So I ended up doing my communications. I wrapped up my degree there, and I spent 4 years at Missouri State. Yes. So I was undergrad at Missouri State and in Springfield, Missouri, SMSU as we call it, but now it's Missouri State. And then I wrapped up my communications degree at Lindenwood. I was on that 6-year plan. So I was the first in my family to go to college. I'm the only in my family to graduate college. And I literally 3 weeks ago just paid off my student loan. So I was, I paid for everything myself. So I was really on that 6-year plan because I hustled for it. I worked for it. And it just took me longer to do that. But yeah, proud of that experience. And, those student loans, bye-bye. They went away 3 weeks ago. And that was a pretty good feeling.
Congratulations on paying them off. And you'll notice throughout the interview, we have a lot of things in common. Of course, MPI is a common structure. I actually saw you in Las Vegas at WEC 2 years ago presenting. So I remember you from then. Excellent presentation.
Awesome.
And then you kind of came up in the hotel world like me. So when you first started working, was it Millennium Hotels and Resorts back in like 2002?
Oh, look at you. You got some history. You got it. You got it down. You've done some Google. I love it. No, for sure. Yeah, Millennium was my first job in the hotel industry. And even the story on how I got that job is a kind of cool story. And we can get into that at some point. But, I talk a lot about fear and taking risks and putting yourself out there. And I probably wouldn't have never had that job or be sitting here talking to you had I not done a really scary thing when I met my boss at the time who hired me for that job, but Millennium 2002, and then worked for Omni Hotels for a while, did some CBB work. So yeah, I mean, I definitely came up in the hospitality and meetings industry, and I'm really proud of that.
Excellent. Well done. What inspires you to join MPI when you were young in your career?
Yeah. So pretty much lends itself to the story around how I got my first job in the industry. So I was running a bar. I was a bartender. When I finally graduated, 9/11 had just happened. So the world was crazy, right? And no one was hiring. And especially in the travel industry, it was just kind of a goofy time that year, 2001. So I was running a bar, I was bartending, and I was doing some work for Hard Rock Cafe. So I'd opened the St. Louis location, one of their lead bartenders, and my manager at the time, his wife said, you got to go to an MPI meeting with me. You should just come. I'm like, what is that? I mean, I had no idea there were even jobs in hotels. I assumed it was just a front desk and like the bellman. I had no idea that meetings meant business. At the time, I had no idea that conventions and trade shows were such a thing, right? I just had no clue. So I go to this MPI meeting in St. Louis at the Adams Mark and left the comfort and security. So here's the fear story. I'm at this luncheon, and I leave the security. I am 24 years old. I printed up a bunch of paper resumes like a nerd. I had business cards made up that had, like, I'm not kidding you, my GPA on them, which I don't even know why I put that on there because my GPA was never good. But I was like, I'm a communications major. My name is Judi. All these things. I was just so damn excited. And I left the comfort of this woman who brought me there on purpose to see if I could meet some new people. I was so hungry for a salary. I was so hungry to make it. I just wanted someone to give me a chance because I knew I had to stop bartending. I was done with that hustle, but I just knew I needed a chance. So I left the comfort of that girl and walked up to this blonde woman in a power suit standing in the corner by the iced tea. And I kid you not, all these years later, she's my mentor to this day, and she's a leader in Ritz-Carlton. But I went over there, talked to her, said hello. Literally in 24 hours, I was scared out of my mind. I just said hello, introduced myself, and passed her one of my business cards and told her I was in the market for a job. And 24 hours later, I get a call, and I got my first ever interview for Express Meetings Manager at the Millennium in St. Louis. I had no experience. I didn't know about room nights or RevPAR or Hollow Square or theater seating, but the woman saw something in me. She hired me 2 days later after the interview, and I mean, the rest is history.
The rest is history. Excellent. So what I'm going to do is that, as you saw, like I teach at Cal State Fullerton, and I've been trying to tell my students, share with them the importance of NPI. And that little 3-minute story that you just shared is like a perfect teaser for us to open our class. So it might not be next week's class, but the week after, I'm going to share your story because that's a perfect synopsis right there. Why?
I love that. And I love that's what it's all about. And I think the big message is that there's so many of us that, it's uncomfortable to be uncomfortable, right? And to, even the extroverts, it can be really hard to navigate an unscripted situation, right? But we have to break out. And I think if I wouldn't have left the comfort of Holly, the woman who brought me, I would have never met Heather, and it wouldn't have set into motion the rest of my life. So MPI really gave me, I opened the door, but it was on the platform and on the stage of MPI. And I think that moment really forever made me so grateful for that association. And more importantly, it made me very alert to the fact that, boy, if you have the guts to put yourself out there, you can really change your life. And that started almost a 20-year career with MPI, doing a lot of work with them from a chapter perspective, a global perspective, and certainly an industry perspective.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to follow your footsteps and be chapter president. I think for the next term, I'm VP of Education next. So we'll see about that. But
so proud of you.
Yeah, definitely. This will be a 2-part question. The first will be an easy one for you, but I just want you, what is your definition of fear?
Gosh, that's such a good one. I've never quite thought about summing it up into one sentence. I think my definition of fear is letting the monsters in your head control your destiny. This idea of letting and allowing self-doubt and perfectionism and procrastination and self-doubt and excuses, which are, oh, by the way, all of fear's best friends, allowing that stuff to run your damn life. I choose to be the boss. Now, hello, fear. I see you. I thank you. You keep me safe. You are a very good reminder that I am very much alive. See, I'm nervous here on a podcast. I'm nervous on stage. Good. Those nerves remind me that I've got a heart in my chest, right? And blood in my body, but I'm the boss. So you can take a seat here in my office right across from me and watch me crush this podcast, but you're not driving the car. That is how I talk to my fear. So I think it is this little monster that lives in our heads, that tries to steal our joy and rob us of opportunities to really do incredible things.
Yeah, great definition. The second part is, I know you started like your LLC and your business, maybe we'll say 2013.
Correct.
What inspired you to go full time in 2016?
Oh yeah. So I had been picking up some traction. I just started speaking. So I was a hospitality professional by day in the meetings industry, sales and marketing. And by night, I was running the improv game. I was studying and performing at Second City, and I ended up getting accepted into the professional program, the conservatory at Second City, which you audition to get into, and you have to audition to stay in. It's a pretty big honor. So I was doing that at night, and I started to watch improv really changed the game for me. All this brave stuff I was doing on stage at Second City, all that training that was helping me at Second City really started to help me do brave things at work. Like, for example, I would start playing games in corporate America, fear experiments rather, where I would make it a game. On this conference call, I'm going to be the first to speak up, or little fear experiments, right? So I'd be in a meeting. I'm going to be the first to ask a question. I'm going to be the first to raise my hand. I'm gonna, confront that person and say how I really feel. I'm going to say no when I really mean no, right? So I'm going to ask for the raise. I'm going to ask for a raise today. I'm going to ask for a raise. And I would use my improv training and the courage training, the fear training I was getting at Second City to help me ease into some of these ideas professionally. So I started writing about it, blogging about it, my experience. I started speaking to anyone that would listen to me. I would speak for free forever, all over the place. I would tell my directors of sales, can I lead the sales meeting? Which, oh, by the way, was a fear experiment. Can I lead the meeting? Can I share a few ideas that I just learned in this book or in this TED Talk or at the MPIWEC or whatever? So that's what led to really the traction to be able to quit my business or my full-time job in 2016. I started to build up some traction. I started to get a following. And I started to get paid to speak. And It was small fees that have grown into, different fees at this stage now, doing it almost 3 years professionally. You get better with experience and all of that. So I just started to get some traction, and I sat down with I wasn't married at the time. I sat down with my husband, who was my fiance at the time. And I said, I had a little war chest, right? I had some money saved up, and I knew it was time it was now or never. And, I'm preaching to the choir, talk about fear. What am I so afraid of? And why not me? Why not me? Why not now? And why not this idea? So I just took a deep breath and put in my resignation, and officially July 1st, 2016 was the first week I didn't get a paycheck that I really was on my own, which is still scary to this day, but it's
well done.
It keeps you motivated. Yeah.
Well done. Well done. Now, I'll give you 30 seconds. Where you are right now today, we're recording this in February. How would you summarize yourself in 30 seconds or less?
I can do that. Mainly because I wrote it down, so it would stay in 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
Because I enjoy talking. It's something I like to do. Okay, so here's what I would say, 30 seconds or less. I am an improv junkie who uses the experimental ideas from the improv theater to help you navigate the unscripted stage of everyday life.
Boom. Yes, there you go. Well done. Now, the follow-up question to that is, in your opinion, what's important for creative professionals such as yourself, myself, to succeed in today's business environment?
Well, so you may find this is no surprise, but number one, we have got to figure out how to embrace fear. So we can't move forward as creatives, and especially as creatives, if we can't figure out how to have a relationship with fear and those monsters that live in our heads, right? So understanding, I think knowledge is power. Number one, understanding that we need to embrace fear, and also understanding how it shows up is a powerful way to move forward as a creative, because we can get so stuck in perfectionism and procrastination. I don't know about you, but when I was writing my book, I have a book coming out in May, as you mentioned, and last summer I was writing, and I would find myself, I had this really meaty chapter number 3, and I just couldn't seem to get through it. And what I would do is I would sit down to start the work, and then literally 20 minutes later, I would be organizing all of the stamps and stickers and thank you notes in my thank you notes drawer. Now, nerd alert, I love to send thank you notes in snail mail. So here I am, 45 minutes, and I'm just organizing things, and I've stopped doing my work. And then I said, aha, procrastination, I see you. Because fear doesn't want you to sit down and do the work, right? Because the second you do the work, you'll do the thing, and then you'll finish the thing. And then when you finish the thing, you've changed yourself. You could change the world. You could change your life. And then fear has nowhere to go. So understanding how fear shows up in forms like procrastination and perfectionism and self-doubt and excuses and gossip, right? And all of these little things fear uses to keep us stuck and safe, I think, is the number one thing creatives have to figure out, so that when they see perfectionism, when they see procrastination, when they see themselves making excuses, they can call it for what it is and move forward. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number one. And then I'd have 2 more. You have to really protect your energy, which is your mental, physical, and emotional well-being, because none of this works if you don't work. And it doesn't. So that's people, keeping negative people out of your life, letting go of some of that stuff. It gets easier as you get older. That's for your students to understand. If I knew this in my 20s, but I think you have to have those negative experiences when we're younger to make us really wake up to what matters and, what good energy feels like and what bad energy feels like. But we got to protect our energy. That's number 2. And then protecting your IP, your intellectual property. Are you learning enough? Are you reading enough? Are you attending enough meetings, conferences? Are you watching TED Talks? I think people worry, especially creatives who run a business, about staying relevant. That's your secret weapon. Stay relevant. Take yourself to school, right? I did not come from money. I did not grow up with money. And so I had to figure it out. I had to go get it for myself. And, that was a big gift I got early on. I realized that in reading books, I could take myself to the University of paper, right? Now you can go to the University of Google and figure anything out. You could figure anything out. And there is so much power in that, but really protecting your intellectual property. And the last one and fourth one would be making it a habit to do that, making it a habit to protect your intellectual property, making it a habit to protect your energy, and making it a habit to sit down and do the work even when fear shows up. Those are all things that creatives need to figure out.
Let's go back to when you said self-doubt. And for creatives who are really struggling with kind of believing themselves, what advice would you give them to increase or improve their belief in themselves and then eliminate self-doubt?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think we'll ever be able to eliminate self-doubt fully. I think we all we're all going to deal with them. None of us know what we're doing, and most of us deal with imposter syndrome. And I think the people who end up moving forward and really crushing it and doing incredible things in life are the ones who have figured out how to feel it and do it anyway. So I don't know if I'll ever, I struggle with self-doubt. I struggle with imposter syndrome, no doubt about it. I don't know if that'll ever go away, but here's what the good news is. You get stronger. It doesn't get easier, but you get stronger. You start to realize that when self-doubt shows up, it is not really you. It is fear trying to stop you from leveling up. So now when I feel it, and I do it to myself all the time as a performer, as a speaker, as a writer about to put a book into the world, I'm thinking, oh my God, who am I? And this has all been said before. It's all been done before. And, I'm nobody, man. I don't know anything. And oh my God, the haters and the trolls are going to come out and they're going to say this. Okay, fine, good. But none of that matters. It's like, hello, self-doubt. Welcome to the fear party, right? You're trying to crash my life party. And it's not something I allow. I just don't allow it. So I think what people need to understand about self-doubt is you won't be able to get rid of it, but you can get a lot better at handling it. And that happens upon repeated attempts of crushing it. Like the more you do scary things, the more you put yourself out there, the more people encourage you in your life, the easier it is to move through it. I was just telling my husband last night, I said, I'm so grateful. And I think one of my big gifts in life is I have had a lot of people around me that encourage me, that tell me I'm crushing it. There's people that tell me, when I need to make edits too, right? I gotta have the real talk.
Yes.
But fear can keep you stuck in too much feedback. Too much feedback will keep you stuck, and that can be fear. But I have a lot of encouragement in my life. So I think if there is someone listening that is really struggling and sitting with some self-doubt, squat up, get some people in your life that are going to remind you about how badass you are, because you are. Because no one does it your way. No one is you. No one has your gifts. And we need what you have. So
Yes.
self-doubt is noise.
Yes.
Noise.
We need what you have. I like when you say that. If we look at your career, and you've had a lot of different moments and turning points, but I'm curious to hear, if you had to pick one turning point for your career, what would that be? What comes to mind?
A turning point for my career, I would definitely say it was when I started studying improv theater, because I was doing it in my professional career. I was, oh my God, at the time, like 31. So, I mean, I was grown. I wasn't some like 22-year-old trying to be on SNL, and that was, one of the things that a lot of people don't know, that the very first time, and I say this in some of my talks based on the talk I'm doing, that, the very first time I signed up for classes at Second City, I never even went. I signed up, I paid the fee, I walked all the way from my apartment in Lincoln Park to that training facility in Old Town. I walked into that building, went up the stairs, stood literally in front of the classroom door, and I never even went in. And I remember lying to people, literally lying, when they asked if I was lost, if I needed help. I was just like, oh no, my bad, wrong day, wrong room. I don't know, I lied. I ran out of there so fast. I was so scared. I was so in my head. I thought, here's the soundtrack in my head. You're too late. You're too old. You're too late. You're too old. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not funny enough. All these young kids are trying to be on SNL, and I quit and I ran out. Now, the story has a happy ending, because I did go back about a year later and mustered up some courage. I had a good squad in my life, and I knew I needed to try this, and I had some really great encouragement. So it helped me get back into that classroom door. I re-signed up for the classes, and it was something that literally changed my entire life. And what's so funny about going back into that improv classroom is that when I did open the door the second time, the first person I saw was a woman named Shelly, and she was 62 years old. She's a professor. So here I was, so worried about being old, and the first person I saw was 62 years old. It was amazing. And
Great.
It was just, this is what I talk about. What if I wouldn't have gone back, right? What if I wouldn't have opened that door? We wouldn't be jamming on this podcast. I probably wouldn't have a book called It Fears My Homeboy, right? I might not have leveled up the way I did at MPI because I was afraid, right? So that was a massively defining moment in my life, because it showed me that when we do brave things, you open up a whole new world of people, places, and things. And it's what led me to the work I now do around fear and bravery and just helping people move forward.
Yeah. You know how they say you can't connect the dots looking ahead, you can only connect them looking back, and you just connected many of the dots right there.
And that's so true. It gives me goosebumps thinking about it. It really does. I mean, I'm so glad I went back. I'm so glad. And again, it goes back to encouragement, right? So when I'm in that self-doubt of quitting, thank God I had some good people in my life, right? That are like, no, not today. You are not quitting.
Yes.
So we need that. Even through my book, I had so many people. I mean, when I was in the depths of despair, right? Of figuring it out and self-doubt and thinking like, who am I to write this book? You've got to have people helping you out. And that's what can push you through. You got to do the work. But the more you do that, the stronger you get. I promise.
Exactly.
I promise.
For your book writing, have you ever heard of the book Bird by Bird?
No. And I'm a bookworm. So talk to me. What
I'm going to tell
that?
you, it's just about just what you're saying. Like it was from a famous author. I'll remember her name, but I know it was just a simple exercise and something that happened where her brother tried to do a project and he was cramming for it and did it late. And her father was like, you just have to take it bird by bird. So I'll send you the link. It's a really famous book, and it works out well. I forget the author's name, but I've heard stories about it before. So that's one for you. We'll talk about books a little later as well too.
I love that. Well, I couldn't agree with that more. I call that beta bravery, right? So confidence comes after repeated attempts of crushing it, but we don't need you to run the marathon. We just need you to sign up for the race, right? Yes. So it's taking it like, what is step one? okay, I'm going to write a word, and that word is going to become a sentence, and that sentence is going to become a paragraph, and that paragraph is going to become a chapter, and that chapter is going to become a book, right? So it was just sitting down, like literally, I love that you just said that, because I literally operate most of my life in business in 30-day windows and do small tasks, one at a time, because you can take that. I think this is what stops people. I'm going to riff here for a second, but fear. People get stopped in fear because they don't go bird by bird. They think, oh my God, I'll never be able to, or oh my God, I got to lose 50 pounds. Why don't we just try to lose a pound? You know, why don't we, okay, I want to quit smoking. Why don't we, because I did that. I smoked for years. So how do we quit smoking? Well, okay, I'm going to try and make it 4 hours. Okay, if I can go 4 hours, I can go 6 hours. If I can go, you know, so why do we take these big things and make them so big? How can we take those big, scary things and break them down into manageable, tasty, juicy little time chunks, bird by bird? I think that is so great. And I will look that book up.
Yes, you'll like it. Why do you love what you do?
Oh my God, the stories from people that are out there taking the ideas and using them and going forth and creating things, or doing things that they never dreamt that they could. So I love the stories. It's my fuel. When you work alone as a creative entrepreneur, you're probably solo a lot. I mean, we get out, we do events, but a lot of times we're creating alone. And so how I know the ideas are working are those DMs and those messages that come in and those emails that we get from the tribe. I call them my fear bosses, right? So we're fear bosses, and from all the fear bosses that are out there making fear their homeboy, and they're doing really cool things. And that is what gets me out of bed in the morning, because I'm like, okay, now what can we create to help them do even better? So it's all about the fear boss and how we, because I'm one of them too, right? I create what I need. So I think that's what motivates me. And also I'm very motivated to stay relevant. So I'm always working on reading, learning. You know, I want to stay in business just like you. And I think we always have to be, fresh, and we have to find ways to stay relevant. And we will never be able to do that if we're trying to be someone else. We have to be who we are. And so you always be relevant, because if it comes from you, it will always be original. So we can get inspired by people. I consider myself an idea DJ. I thought you may like that.
I love that. Yes.
Yes, I get inspired by other people. Nothing's new, nothing's original, but my take on it's original, right? Because it comes from me, and what Amani does is original because it comes from you. So being authentic is a really big deal. But yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm so inspired by the people that let me know that they're out there crushing it. I just want to keep creating things for them, you know?
Cool. On the flip side, what is something that scares you?
What is something that scares me? I'm a huge fraidy cat. So maybe that's why I do a lot of work on fear. But I'm a huge fraidy cat. I always kind of have been. But I suffer as much as everybody else does. And I think that's why I create what I need. But I would say that, I think I just touched on it, is, my biggest fear is staying in business, staying relevant and staying in business. And how am I making sure that, when the world changes, when SHIT hits the fan, when the world pivots, because it always does and it always will, how am I making sure that I'm cool, right? And I'm moving along with it. And how am I protecting myself? Because I am a business and nothing works if I don't work. So am I healthy? Am I thriving physically, emotionally, mentally, all of that? So, the thing that keeps me up at night is just, earning that money, right? And making sure that I stay in business and we just continue to create things that people really need. And I think, that's, I think, always my biggest fear, but it's ends up becoming my biggest gift, because if I didn't have that fear, so I think every fear can end up being a gift, because if I didn't have that fear, would I get up, would I set my alarm every morning at 6:30 and come hustle? No. Would I, would I skip weekends or, to go do things with my friends to hit a book deadline? No. Right. So, I hustle and I use a focused hustle approach, because that is a fear of mine. And that is what makes me show up. That is what makes me sit down and do the work. And that's what makes me a pro. I am like Michael Jordan, right? Behind this computer. I am not just showing up to maybe dribble the ball every now and then. No, Michael Jordan played with the flu. You got to sit down and do the work, right? And if you want to be great, you got to show up. And I think if I didn't have that fear, I wouldn't. So that's a little juicy nugget for creatives. There's a great book by Stephen Pressfield, and I know we'll get there. But it's a book called Turning Pro.
Yeah.
turning pro, and it's all about doing the work, and he's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's brilliant. He also, The War of Art, which I know you're a fan
Oh,
of as well. Love that one. So yes, you're
that was
preaching
gonna
to the
be my
choir.
that was going to be my number one book recommendation,
we,
although I have another one for you in my back pocket. But oh my God, if you are listening, you probably talked about it to your tribe, but if you are listening to this podcast right now and you have not read, and you are a creative, but I think any human that is breathing air should read this book. If you have not read War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, oh my God, run and get it. I think it's life reading and probably one of the best business and life books I've ever read in my entire life. And certainly if you're struggling with self-doubt, that book will help you check
yes.
yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes,
No
yes.
doubt.
Nice hip hop reference. He talks about
Oh,
the
I'm going to talk about
I
Cube.
know. The resistance is what he talks about. You spoke about staying relevant. Your industry, the professional speaking industry, is very crowded. How do you rise above all the noise and distinguish yourself from the competition?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think that you have to, I think one of the first things you can do to rise above the noise in your industry, whatever it is that you do, is to infuse who you are into everything you do. Your vibe has to be a part of your business. Here's a story, short story. For the longest time, okay, I've just quoted Ice Cube, so this may or may not come as a surprise to you. I I love hip hop. I love old school hip hop. I always have. I graduated high school in 1994. I am proud of that. But I grew up with 80s and 90s hip hop, right? And I've always loved it. I've always loved it. And so for the longest time, and especially when I started my business, I hid that hip hop loving side of my personality a little bit because I was so afraid that people wouldn't take me seriously. I was afraid of what people were gonna think and all this stuff. And then one day, I literally, about 2 years ago, I literally just said, F it. Like, it is who I am. And how do I start infusing this hip hop loving side of my personality into some of the things that I'm creating, into my presentations, into my blogs, into my Instagram stories, into, you know, who it is that I am and what it is that I create. And the second I started doing that, I not only literally like let off the shackles I had been like sort of tied down in. I literally set myself free. I started having so much more fun. The creative juices just started vibing because I was really creating from a place that made me happy and it was who I was. And the best part is that I started attracting clients who liked the same thing and people who wanted to work with me who were the same way. Like if you don't, you know, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I hate that I waited so long. It's like I wish I would have again, fear.
Yeah.
Had I started doing this 5-6 years ago, what could I have created? I mean, even think about the title of my book, Fear is My Homeboy. I consider that, you know, fear is being my friend. And I got a lot of resistance from people on that. That's how I knew it was right.
Yes.
People were like, oh, that's never gonna work. Oh, who are you to do that? And that's, oh my God, that's gonna be trouble. And I was like, good, that's it, you know, because I knew it in my bones. That's what I meant, right? So even the title of my book is an example of me leaning into something that I was so afraid of. And so again, it's opened up some creative doors for me. And it really, really led me into working with clients who are so fun and cool and open-minded. And when I put a slide of Ice Cube up in my presentation that says, check yourself before you wreck yourself, they don't freak out because they know what they're getting when they sign up to work with me. And I think that is a really great way to rise above the noise. Be who you are. Infuse what you love into your life and into your business and into what you create. We want that. We want that. It is a whole part of your story. So we want that. Be you.
Great story. Great short story. Now, how has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Yes, I do. I have a lot of failures.
Tell us.
I have a lot of failures. There's a great book called Failing Up that I literally just finished in a night. He was one of the lead actors in Hamilton. I'm blanking out on his name, but he wrote a book about failure and it's called Failing Up. Oh my God, it was so good. I highlighted like 50 things. But failure, yes. In the improv theater, no mistakes, only gifts. No mistakes, only gifts. So we are trained to bomb on stage and be like, that was awesome. What did we learn? And I think, and even in my book, I talk about failure parties. You know, why do we at work sit down and talk about everything that's wrong? Let's go into the boardroom and celebrate that. Oh, look, we lost an account. Awesome. But what did we get when we lost that account? So I guess I'm riffing here because failure is let's stop. We got to stop the fear of failure. It is a gift. It is a reward. And there's always the lesson on the other side. And I've had so many. I think my favorite was when I was in my early 20s. I was that bartender at Hard Rock Cafe. Do you remember when MTV had VJs?
Yes, I
Video
do.
jockeys.
Yes,
So
yes.
for the
Downtown Julie
young,
Brown.
okay. I wanted to be downtown Judi Brown. I would dream about it. And so for the youngins that don't know, you got to Google it up. MTV video jockeys. They were the jam, and I wanted to be one. So back in the day, I was living in St. Louis. They had want to be a VJ competitions. I don't know if you remember this. So Joe Schmoes, anybody could try out to be the new VJ for the year and join the cast. And so I got out of my finals in college. I was a senior, got out of my finals. I told all my professors what I was doing, covered my shifts at the bar. I had no money. What was I doing? But it was great. I flew to Chicago on a Southwest flight. And I stayed in a hotel called the Congress, which you wouldn't even want to walk into. I remember like triple bolting my door, but I was all by myself, and I flew there all by myself to go audition. It was pouring down rain. I stood in line for 15 hours, if not more, meeting all kinds of great people, but totally by myself. By the time I get into the audition room, I was ready for the big moment. This is going to happen. You know, I was going to try and get down to the finals and all that. And oh my God, I blanked out. I froze. I couldn't even, I was like, couldn't even read the cue cards, and I was stuttering my words. I had back sweat. I just panicked. I froze in the face of fear, and I panicked. And what could have been a really embarrassing failure, heartbreaking situation, like I didn't become an MTV VJ, oh, okay, well, whatever, was a really cool experience because I was 23 years old, almost 24. I had traveled alone. I ate dinner alone. I stood in line and talked to a bunch of different strangers. I left the comfort of my little nest. I had never been to the big city of Chicago before. And guess what happened 7 years later? I moved to Chicago.
Yes,
and I think that was the first taste of the city that I knew was so alive with creative people. And yeah, that was a failure, but it was the biggest gift, because had I not gone, I wouldn't have learned all those things about myself. And to be 23 and to travel alone and eat dinner by yourself, we had no Facebook. We had no Instagram to keep us company while we're eating dinner. Like, I had to read a book. I had to engage. And I think that was a powerful experience for me. So that failure, which was really embarrassing, and in front of all these people, like I literally bombed, became a really cool experience to look back on.
Yeah, excellent story. VJs, love it, love it. Now,
I know.
You have achieved a great modicum of success so far, 40 Under 40. You got a book coming out. You're a keynote speaker across the world. Because of this, you do tend to acquire some more critics, or haters, as we like to call them. How do you handle your critics or your haters?
I got 3 words. Block and bless. Block and bless. Because we will never be able to get rid of the haters, right? We're going to have negative feedback. I would say to any creative listening to this, anytime a hater comes up or does something to hurt you or critique you or throw you off your game, you have to remember, do a cheer, do a dance, because that means you're doing something. If you are getting noticed, good or bad, you're out there, you're shaking things up, you're doing things, block and bless. So like terrorists, I do not negotiate with trolls or haters, right? So I will not participate in any negative conversation. Doesn't mean I take every comment down. I love a healthy discussion. And I'm not really creating a ton of controversial work, but there's people that love to say things about the way you look and your hair and the color of your skin or whatever it may be, right? So people are gonna be negative. So I block and bless. I do not negotiate with terrorists. They're terrorists in my opinion. And let it remind you that you're out there doing things, and just remember that if they are not also this is a Brene Brown, I think, if they're not also in the arena with you, doing the same kind of work, be careful what feedback you listen to, because feedback can become fear. We can get stuck in I had somebody tell me that he commented on a video and he told me I should only be speaking to the dogs. Like I was only good enough for the American Kennel Association. You know what I mean? And so those kind of comments make you want to stop and make you not want to go and do the next job and rethink your entire keynote. And that's what fear wants. That's what those people want. So you have to remember, okay, the 99% of everybody else loves the work, right? And it's great and it's supportive. So you just have to be careful, because there's a lot it's easy to hide. It is easy to hide because you get that negative stuff. So block and bless and do not negotiate.
Block and bless. Another great little witty saying. I love it. Love it. Tell us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
Darkest time in my life. Funny, I crossed that question out because I was doing pre-work because I was scared of it.
Fear.
Scared.
Fear.
You know what? I gotta say, we've all had some tough times. I certainly am so blessed in my life. I've gotten so many great experiences, so many great people in my life, and I've worked hard as hell for everything that I've earned. I think the hardest time of my life was just growing up in my environment. My mom I grew up with a mentally unstable mother. We don't even have a relationship to this day, and it's really hard being a girl growing up with a mom who is mentally challenged. She's bipolar. So I kind of grew up early afraid of what I was going to come home to every day, and I had to figure out how to love myself. Now my dad's super supportive and still one of my favorite people in the world. They're both alive, and my mom and I do the best we can with what we can do for someone who is just not mentally well. But moving through that environment growing up was really hard, and I don't talk about it a lot. I give it a little bit of a nod in the book just to explain a few things about who I am and why I think I became the person that I am. But I think that environment was one of the most challenging, darkest times of my lives, because you just never knew what you were going to get, and it was really scary. And I had to figure out how to be my own cheerleader a little bit, because I certainly wasn't getting it. And my dad was just trying duck and cover. My dad was just trying to figure out how to keep us all alive.
Right,
really,
right, yeah.
honest. I mean, he ended up divorced. They ended up getting divorced. And, to this day, it's a pretty dangerous, weird situation. But man, I think my dad was just trying to keep it together. So it wasn't like so I had to figure that out for myself. And so I really found a lot of great people through my school and through different friends. And I started working when I was like 12 or 13, and, a lot of great mentors that were in the hospitality and catering industry that really helped me from an early age, like mothers that weren't my mothers, So I think that ended up being a gift, because it really made me resilient, and it made me realize that, I could break the cycle. I am not that. And I think we can do anything and be anything, even if someone for a long time has told you that you couldn't.
Yes, and you have broken the cycle. For young girls out there that might be going through the same thing right now, what's one thing you would say to them to help them get through?
I would say if you're in a situation where you don't have that role model in your life, maybe it's a mom or a dad, or maybe you have an issue with a sibling. Chapter 1 of my book is titled Love Yourself, because the best bet you will ever make is on yourself. And I think in my 20s, I made when I did make the poor decisions, the reasons I made the poor decisions was because I hadn't figured out how to fully love myself. And the second I did that, I really started to realize that in loving who I was, and not having to seek it from an external source. Yes, we need love and support in our lives, but the best bet you'll ever make is on yourself. If you can't love yourself, how can you expect anyone else to? And I think a lot of the bad guys I dated in my 20s were a reflection of the lack of self-love I had, or I was trying to fulfill a void that I didn't get from my mom, or something I wasn't getting at home. And if I could look at my 20-year-old self, that's what I would tell her. I would tell her, number one, it's all gonna work out. But number two, figure out how to love yourself. I would have started reading the books I was reading now so much earlier. I'd be reading Brene Brown and Marie Forleo and Elizabeth Gilbert and Stephen Pressfield and Seth Godin, and really Mel Robbins, really learning that you can go make things happen, and that it's great to have people love you. I don't mean that it's not. I'm saying nothing matters more than you really loving yourself, because that's what helps you move through fear and self-doubt. Because no matter what, if I fall off this improv stage, I still have people that love me, yes, but I love me. I freaking love me. And that's what I would tell anyone who is struggling with a family member or a spouse or a sibling or a friend who is not there for you. Go inward, right? Go inward.
Go inward. An excellent segue to this question is, for you, who was the most influential person for you growing up?
Yeah, so I alluded, because I had a challenging relationship with my mom, I really ended up sort of having a secondary mother figure. Her name was Georgianne Van Isegem, and she was a friend of my parents. She knew my parents, and her daughter ended up being my childhood best friend, Teresa. And her mom, I went to work when I was 12 and a half, 13 years old, like little part-time stuff in grade school. And I worked for her catering company. She ran a catering company. So I was kind of in the hospitality and meetings business before I was in the business. It's always been in my bones. So I would work banquets and serve muscatoli at weddings. I would bus tables and wash dishes. I would work at their deli, and I made a mean French dip sandwich, right? So, and I always got to eat food for free, which is awesome because I love to eat. So she was such a role model to me because she was a boss, right? She was running this company. And I remember being young at that age, watching like vendors coming in to deal with her. And she was classy and lovely and had this beautiful home and a big family and all these things. But boy, a vendor would come in and try and challenge her or treat her a certain way. And you would watch her turn into this really confident, courageous, brave, badass woman before you were even saying those things. And I remember thinking, that is it. That's what it looks like to really love yourself and to be brave. And you can be beautiful and kind, but still firm and smart and courageous and bold, right? And so she was my first taste of that because I didn't get it at home. And it was really cool to watch her run that beautiful business. And she had a big family, and she had a pool at her house, and she was just so cool. And I just remember thinking, yeah. And I think it was the first time I ever remembered, like, oh, I would love to run a business. You know, I remember being young thinking this would be great, you know, to really build something that people loved. She is still alive, and she's lovely. And as lovely as she would also chase me around her house with a shoe if I ever acted up. I once mooned her. I went back when kids moon people.
Yes.
You can cut this if you need to. But I once mooned her because I was trying to moon Teresa, my friend, her daughter. And that was like when kids mooned people. Kids don't do that anymore. You probably get arrested if you moon someone now. But I mooned her. But instead of mooning my friend, I mooned Georgianne. And I'm telling you, boy, she came at me with that shoe. She had every right to, because my parents were like, if she's at your house, this is your daughter, so you discipline. But she was just a badass, and she is a badass, and what an early role model for me.
Thank you, Georgianne. Thank you. We'll give her a thank you shout out on the show. Lovely. What do you find easy to do that your friends find hard to do?
Oh, I would say public speaking.
Yeah.
You know, speaking on stage. It doesn't mean it's easy for me. I make it look easy because I train for it. I show up like a pro and I do the work. And by the time anyone see me on a stage, I've put in hours and hours of rehearsals and watching myself, which is awful. But if you can't watch yourself, why would you expect anyone else to, right? You're never going to get better if you don't watch, you know? So I have put in the work. So by the time anybody see me on stage, there's really been some intense hustle on the front end, but performing has always come natural for me. Storytelling, I was in speech meets when I was a kid. So I would travel all over and memorize monologues and win like gold ribbons. Like I would do very well. And I would go all throughout the state of Missouri winning these speech meet competitions, not speech and debate, but like real storytelling and memorizing monologues. So I would say that's the one thing most of my friends and family, and me and my dad, like, where did you come from? Like, no, how is this even a thing? So I don't know. I feel afraid every time I get on a stage. I just know how to channel it, and I know how to, and there's 3 things I do, by the way, before I give any speech. You want to hear what they are?
Yes, please share.
So if you're nervous to speak, there's 3 things I do. Number 1, I power pose. So I catch a vibe backstage or in a bathroom stall, if it has to be, for 2 minutes, and I power pose. So if you haven't watched Amy Cuddy's TED Talk on power posing, link to it in the show notes, but it really raises your vibration. So I power pose for 2 minutes. I stand like Superwoman, and then as you can see, I got my earbuds in. I always listen to something juicy right before I go out. I was on a big Eminem kick for a while. Right now, my song is Unstoppable by Sia. So I listen to Unstoppable by Sia. It's so good. Yes. It reminds me that I am unstoppable. I am confident. I am brave. I am bold. I am worthy. I am here, and I'm about to go do this. And then right when that gets done, I tell myself I love myself. I tell myself I love myself. And the rest is history. By the time you get onto that stage, you're about 3-4 minutes into any talk, and the nerves are gone because you've already done the thing. See, fear can't stand with action. So the second we put in momentum and we walk out onto that diving board and jump off, or go out into the karaoke stage, fear has nowhere to go. So once you're into your talk, fear walks off, because you're already in too thick with action. But those are the three things I do before any talk. Yeah.
Great tips. Great tips. If we think back to when you used to give monologues, what was your one favorite monologue to give?
Oh my God, I don't even know. It's so bad. I have the worst memory. They were stories, and I wish I would have saved those. I've been asked that question before, and I honestly, it must be in a different compartment of my brain. And it's one thing I wish we had saved. My dad has a big file, a big box at his house that I'm going through when I go back to St. Louis in March. And I'm hoping some of the older stories are there, but I cannot believe I do not remember any of them to save my life. I wish I could answer that.
We'll follow up in a year or two. Maybe you remember it by then.
Yeah. Oh, if I get into that box, I'll let you know.
What would you like to be better at?
I think I'm getting better at this. Definitely getting better at this. But I'm not very patient. That becomes, I'm the oldest, right? I'm type A, I run it, I don't know. And I think that's how I also kind of survived growing up in my environment. Like, I can control my world, and I make things happen, and I need to get them going. And I have to remember, my husband's always telling me, he's like, slow down.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that we like wait, and because there's fear in slowing down too, but we got to think through things. And so I've been doing really good about, like, if a goofy email comes in, or something like that, I try to give myself like 24 hours, especially even in business decisions. You want to jump at the shiny penny.
Yes,
and I think we just have to take a deep breath, because not everything's a yes. Yes, we need to say yes, but we also need a healthy balance of no. And if you don't give yourself space, how do you know? Like, how do you really know? I mean, a lot of times our bodies will fire up, and we know when it's a hell yes, but sometimes it still should be a no. So I'm just trying to give myself space, but I'm really impatient. I got a little Italian, little fire in me. And so I just got to try and take a deep breath, and realize it's all in motion.
I can relate 100%. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Delegation, for sure.
Tell us
And
more.
especially, as a business owner and as a creative entrepreneur, I hired my first team member. So I work with a lot of different kinds. I have a video guy, a web designer, a bookkeeper. I have a marketing girl, someone who's helping me with content, product designer. Everybody's kind of on a contract, but I now have a team member. Her name's Amanda. She's my business ninja. And I hired her a year ago. So her 1-year anniversary was just in January. And I remember I was so terrified, because no one could do it like me, and I'm going to mess it up. Everybody's going to mess it up. And how can I trust someone? And what if they leave me? And what if, which is all fear. But I have a business coach. I've invested in a professional business coach, and she's like, you will never be able to scale or give what you want to the world if you're trying to do it all on your own. And she was so right. It was the best decision. I would have never probably been able to write this book or have my time freed up if I had not had her. And I, to this day, I tell her, I'm so grateful for you. So it took me a long time to be able to pass over the keys to my little world to someone else, like let them intimately into my business. But it was the best decision I ever made, no doubt about it. But it took me a long time to get there. I just did it a year ago. It's been my first person a year ago. Like she's in my business, right? Managing my book, like helping me with everything. And that was hard to do, but it was the best decision I ever made.
Congrats. What inspired you to hire a business coach?
Oh, I it's again goes back to this, like being a pro mentality. I think, like anybody who's playing at the top of their game from an athlete perspective, they have a coach, right? They're running drills, and they have someone outside of their head and outside of their business holding them accountable to what it is that they want to get done. And they see things a little bit differently, and they're not so personally attached, to everything you do. I'm so personally attached. I need someone out of my head, and even my husband, I could go to him for advice, but he's personally attached to me, right? So he's going to want to protect me. So you need someone that's kind of outside of your head and outside of your personal life to help you drive projects forward. And since I've been with her, it's been 2 years. I raised my speaking fee 3 times.
Yes.
And I think her giving me the confidence, knowing other speakers, here's what you're worth, here's what's in the market, and you need to stay strong. I wouldn't have been able to do that without her. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah.
So, and I also think paying someone actual money, like I write her a pretty big check. And I think that holds me accountable to the work with her. So I show up to her just like she shows up to me. And I think coaching is invaluable. If I could afford it, I'd have more. But I hired someone to help me with a speech, and I'm going to do an intensive in Boston. I paid this woman. She's going to bring in a small group of us. So it's all about the red thread on how to really, so yeah, I'm investing
Yes.
in myself a couple of ways this year, but having a coach is invaluable. And those are some reasons why.
Love it. I'm so glad you shared that, because I agree with you 100%. I'm glad you shared that. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence is, I love to help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence?
Oh, I love that idea. Or I love that sentence that you have. Okay, so my sentence would be, if I had a sentence, it would be, I use improv to help people transform fear into a powerful secret weapon.
Boom. There you have it.
Like
There
I
you
like
have
I like to pull fear out of my back pocket, like, whoof.
it.
Like if you guys could see me on video right now, I just kind of did the blazing guns thing. But yeah, I love to pull it out of my back pocket. No one sees it coming, because when people think you're afraid of something, that's an easy thing to think, right? But when they see that you're not, boy, people don't know what to do with that. And it's great. You sometimes surprise yourself. So I love to help people figure that out. Like you could really, when fear shows up, knowing that it's fear, man, you can really do anything. You just got to get in front of it.
Yes, you can. Exactly. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or so that has been most beneficial?
Okay, so Amani, I don't know, you've been following me. You follow me. I follow you. You probably heard me talk about this. I'm just going to show you. I even got it right here on my desk. So I use something called the most invaluable tool. I'll start this over so you can soundbite it. The most invaluable tool that I've brought into my life and into my business in the last couple of years, it's been almost 3 years, is what I call a goal focused planner. I use a planner called the Volt, VOLT, the Volt planner. It's by a company called Ink and Bolt. I don't work with them. I just love it. There's a great company called Commit 30. But what I love about it, and it goes back to this idea of bird by bird, these planners are scientifically designed. Yeah, you're going to be working in Google and Gmail and all the platforms, your CRM. Yeah, you're using all those tools that you use online to structure your day. But do you have a tool in your life that's going to hold you accountable to the stuff you want to get done? This is how I achieve my focused hustle approach. It really helps you take your life and your business bird by bird. So you start the year off with a big theme or a goal, and then you break those goals down into months, and then you break those monthly goals down into weeks. And at the end of every week, you are going back. And at the end of every month, you're going back and looking at what you got done and reassessing month by month, and then looking back at your year. So how are we pacing? Does this make sense? Has my life changed? Has my business changed? I mean, I don't know about you, but last year I looked at some of my goals that I set out for myself last January. And by the time December rolled around, I was a different human being.
Yes.
While I got 95% of that stuff done on my list because I used this goal focused planner, I had changed. The world had changed. Things had happened in my family and in my life that just didn't make some of these make sense anymore. If we are not thinking bird by bird, we get in too deep with strategic goals that don't really make sense for us anymore. These planners really help you stay focused. So, I mean, to everybody that's listening, if there's one tool besides the book War of Art that you could go run out and buy or investigate after this podcast, would be research goal focused planners. Look at planners like the Commit 30, like the Volt planner. Michael Hyatt has a great planner called the Full Focus Planner. There's just some great tools out there, but boy, it has changed my entire business and my entire life, for sure.
Great. We'll link that in the show notes. We spoke about books a lot this episode, which I love. I'm so happy. I'm like a pig in mud. So you talk about the War of Art, the War of Art, Failing Up, Elizabeth Gilbert. If you were going to give someone recommendations for maybe 2 other books that they should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what books would you recommend?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I referenced which Elizabeth Gilbert book I was referencing, but Big Magic. Big Magic. Yeah, I love that you read it because I can see it in your eyes. You read it. That was a game changer. That was actually the book I was reading when I penned in the margin, Fear is My Homeboy, almost 3 years ago. And I literally, it felt like I don't know, like the spirit just jumped inside of me, and I knew I had come up with something that was something, right? And I read it. It was like page 33 or 22, and it like literally took my breath away. I love that book so much. I love that book so much. What else do I love? Is I got all my books back here. I love a lot of stuff by I loved Blue Ocean Strategy. That was kind of old school back in the day, but I thought that was a good one. Oh gosh, The Science of Perfect Timing by Daniel Pink.
Yes.
That's a really good one. He talks about something in that book called nappuccinos. Nappuccinos. He's got all the science around taking naps. But for and then last but not least, and I would even say second to Big Magic, this is the book I really wanted to say. So the 3 books that have changed my life the most are War of Art, Big Magic, and the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Got it.
Oh my God, Essentialism, game
Perfect.
changer.
Speaking of Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert, I'm assuming you have the book that you hold. Have you heard her narrate the audiobook?
You know what? I wish I would have. I should go back and get it because I love books, so I can write in them and jam and refer to them and go back and get ideas. But I have not read her or listened to her audiobook. Is it amazing?
So listen to her Big Magic on audiobook. When she narrates it, it's wonderful. It's spectacular. And then she has a 2-season podcast called Magic Lessons, where she calls people up and talks to them about their issues and kind of what they're going through. And so they tell her about her issues. Then she'll get some sort of like one of her friends, usually it's a celebrity. Like one time she had Neil Gaiman called someone to help them out. She has all these people that help out the people with their normal issues. Some people could be blocked because they're writing, they can't do their art. It's amazing. It's a 2-season podcast called Magic Lessons. I highly recommend it.
Thank you. I just wrote that down in my notebook. I love that.
A second book I'd recommend. Have you read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron?
You know what? It's the one book I haven't read yet.
Oh, yes.
I hear about it all the time in that category, The Artist's Way. I feel like Steve Pressfield talks about that book.
And Elizabeth Gilbert attributes that book. She says she would not have been able to write Eat, Pray, Love or Big Magic without going through The Artist's Way. Yes.
Oh, that's so good.
So what I'll do as a thank you is I have an extra copy here. I'm going to get your PO address. I'm going to mail it to you. And you have to find a partner, find a person to do it like you do an activity once a week for 12 weeks. And I think that you will see an amazing transformation. I mean, you're already hitting new levels, but this will help you kind of bounce even higher. So I highly recommend it. So I'm going to mail you a copy because I've been through the exercise once already. I'm doing it again with my friend Ashley, and it's amazing. It's an amazing activity.
The Artist's Way, and you do it with a partner.
Yes.
Oh my God, I cannot wait. Thank you.
You're welcome. You don't have to do it with a partner, but it has much more impact and it's just more accountability. It's great. It's great. So.
Oh my God, I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
God, I'm so excited.
Me too. So
we
have a couple more questions, then we'll let you go. I first want to hear, since we're talking about books, tell us about your book when it comes out. I'll link to how everyone can get it, but give us a quick synopsis so you can share.
Yeah, so the book is called Fear's My Homeboy, How to Slay Doubt, Boss Up, and Succeed on Your Own Terms. We're so excited about it. Actually, Mel Robbins has endorsed the book, which I think you talked about in the intro. She says, fear can be your best friend, and this book will be too, which is so cool. She says, my advice is relevant, relatable, and actionable, and that's really what this book is all about. So there's 7 chapters that we talk about, and it's kind of meant to be read from front to back because each chapter builds off the other, and then each chapter ends with like a series of 5 homework assignments. So that people can really go to work. Okay, you just read something, but now how does this matter? What can we get done? What can you like? And I think even people, and I really wrote it from the perspective of, I want like sales teams and creative entrepreneurs and people working in environments to be able to take this book and go to like run a sales meeting with it and take some of those homework assignments and let it be the topic that's going to inspire their month or their next sales meeting or team meeting or whatever, right? Like, so there's a lot of like actionable, juicy nuggets, but really this is a book to help you stop doubting your greatness so you can start bossing up on your life. And when I say bossing up on your life, I really reference like, why do we let fear boss us around? I mean, even on the back of the book, it says, it's time to stop letting fear boss you around so you can start leveling up personally and professionally. This is a book for people who believe that they deserve more. This book focuses on helping the reader shut down self-doubt so they can start taking action. And I think action is just such a superpower when you're dealing with fear, because once you start putting one foot in front of the other, fear has nowhere to go. You literally strip its power. So the book is inspired by improv. I tell a lot of stories. I use improv to teach some of the lessons, and it also builds off my decade of speaking and sales and marketing experience, and certainly my now experience as a business owner. So it's kind of like your own personal cheerleader, right? To remind you that you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself. But we get a lot of work done. It's really actionable, full of exercises, and even in the back there's some pull outs and takeaways, and it's a little bit of a party in a book.
Cool. Love it. We'll put all the links in. We'll put our orders in as well. Thank you for sharing.
And it comes out May 28th. I should have told you that. The book comes out May 28th, and it's available for pre-sale now, which is
we'll get you those pieces. Awesome. Now, growing up in St. Louis, were you a Cardinals fan? The baseball.
Oh, I was a St. Louis. I am a St. Louis Cardinals fan.
Busch Stadium.
Ozzie Smith.
Busch Stadium. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Vince Coleman. We're still mad about that game 6 against the Royals when the umpire blew the call. We're still mad about that, but we'll talk about that another day.
That'll be another podcast.
Exactly. If you are at Busch Stadium and they're introducing Judi Holler is coming up to bat, what song is playing?
Batter Up by, isn't that Nelly?
Nelly? Yes, exactly. Okay.
Because Nelly's St. Louis.
He's St. Louis, yes.
Louis,
I respect that.
About to batter up.
Yes.
I always like that song anyway, too. Like, you think about that pre-talk, like batter up. Like, you got to get your head in the game. Yeah. So that's my knee-jerk reaction.
Excellent. Shout out to Nelly and the St. Lunatics. Love it. I'm glad you said
I am a St. Lunatic.
There you go. So before I ask you the final question, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time to talk with us. This has been an amazing, lovely conversation. I remember I heard you say before that sometimes you have mentors that you don't even know. And so I view you as that for me, because I love to follow in your footsteps in terms of MPI, the speaking, writing the book. So thank you. Continue to inspire us. Continue to be out there representing the industry in a great way. I'm just such a fan. So I really appreciate it. Shout out to James Brown Jr. for introducing us and recommending. So thank you.
James Brown.
Yes. And we let all of our guests kind of take us home with any last minute words of wisdom or advice. So I'll say thank you again and take us home.
Last juicy nugget, you are brave, you are badass, and you deserve to be here. You just need to get out of your own way and start believing it, right? And it all starts when you love yourself. But you are brave, you are badass, you are beautiful, and you deserve to be here. So go get you some. Go get you some. This is your life.
Thank you.